All right, welcome to our web presentation. My name is Travis Lunk, and I'm Source Water Protection Coordinator with the City of Wilmington Water Department. And this is in Wilmington, Ohio. Today we're going to talk about Clinton County, Ohio, local watersheds, local water resources, and water uses. A watershed is really a point where everything drains down. You can also call them basins on a larger scale. So the Mississippi River is the largest basin in North America in the United States, and that includes the Ohio River, Missouri. The Ohio River is in multiple states, so running from Pennsylvania through West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Illinois. The Ohio River itself is about 981 miles and ends in Cairo, Illinois at the Mississippi. Within the Ohio River, we have the Little Miami subbasin. If you look at the watersheds in the state of Ohio, we have the Great Miami just to our west. The Scioto is a pretty large watershed to the east. Watersheds in the southern portion of the state drain towards the Ohio River, and a smaller percentage drain north towards Lake Erie. Locally, the Little Miami subbasin, that's the one we're in, is southwest Ohio. It's impacted by glaciers, and the river itself is very scenic and very nice. It's one of the first scenic rivers in the U.S. and just celebrated 50 years of scenic river status. Land on the western portion is developed, and when you get on the eastern portion, you'll see more agriculture as the land use. Clinton County has 4 watersheds. Most of those drain towards the Little Miami, Cedar Creek, Todd's Fork, which includes Cowan Creek, and East Fork. To the eastern portion of the county, you have Rattlesnake Creek, which drains towards the Scioto. We are what's called the headwaters, so it's where the watershed starts. Therefore, the groundwater resources are not quite as abundant. The good thing is we do have a lot of streams and what we call surface water. So surface water is plentiful, and also we have rain, which helps to replenish that surface water. There's also some groundwater influence there. We have, on average, 41.2 inches of precipitation. That's per year. But as you can see here, it has been increasing from 1950 up to present. You do see a trend where we're getting more precipitation per year, most of that in the spring and late winter months. You'll also see that in other counties and other areas, especially here local. Water quantity for the drinking water, we have 2 reservoirs that store about 450 million gallons of water. We had some severe droughts in the 1980s, which had us look for other water sources in the area. Cedar Creek Lake seemed a natural fit. So now we have water from Cedar Creek and Cowan Creek. That provides us with a backup water source in the event that we need it. So we can choose which ones. We can selectively fill the reservoirs that pull off of Cowan Creek. The drinking water supply really is supplying about 2 million gallons of treated water per day for some 12,500 residents in Wilmington and the immediate area. The water plant is staffed 24 hours a day, and that's every day, holidays, and weekends. Water is treated by a series of chemical and physical treatments that help to clean the water to where it meets every state and federal water quality requirement. The water department provides safe, clean, and continuous supply of water for municipal as well as fire protection. Some of the water uses include aquatic life, so that's going to be your fish, some other things we'll talk about, recreation, which is an important one, And downstream, flood control, so we have to keep an eye on that, and also navigation. So on the Ohio River, you'll have a lot of barges and that sort of thing. So those are also some importances of water. Aquatic life, really we can look at an aquatic food web, which starts with algae and plants on the lowest level. There's also some near microscopic zooplankton. We'll have mussels, which we'll talk about here, macroinvertebrates, and working up, you'll have fish and other aquatic vertebrates, and finally plant or land-based animals. So algae and phytoplankton are usually microscopic, but you can see, especially in summer months, you can actually see scum, or sometimes it appears as paint on the surface of the water. Pediostrum, that's one of the green algae. They're pretty beneficial and serve as a food source. Diatoms are interesting. They have the silica shells, which almost look like glass under a microscope. They're also beneficial, cause no harm in most cases. And lastly, the blue-green algae. Those are the ones you hear about associated with harmful algal blooms. So blue-green algae, blooms have been on the rise. The problem with them is they can release toxins that are harmful not only to us, but to other animals. Sometimes you'll see recreation advisories too. So if those get high enough, there'll be warnings not to recreate or swim in the water. Plants, we have flowering plants like the lotus. You can find them not only at Cedar Creek Lake, but also at Cowan Creek. Grasses and other sedges and trees, those really help stabilize banks along the edge of streams and lakes. That's going to prevent some pollution. They serve as a filter, as well as keeping sediment from going into the water. You have duckweed, which can appear as an algae, but it's a plant, and then invasives like hydrilla, which can choke out some of the native vegetation and also impact some of your fish and other aquatic life. Macroinvertebrates are really diverse. They include everything from crayfish down to insect larvae, snails, so pretty diverse. They're important in that they tell us about the water quality. In fact, Ohio Department of Natural Resources and Ohio Environmental Protection Agency use macroinvertebrates as indexes to gauge the health of Ohio streams. Another one that are often overlooked are the mussels. They were very important early on for our economy. They were a source of mother of pearl buttons. So in the 1800s, they were harvested, in many cases over-harvested. More recently, there's been loss of habitat for those mussels, so their populations have been struggling, but they are good indicators of water quality. They also have interesting life histories where they'll have a host fish they lure in, and their larvae, when the fish gets close, they release the larvae, which attach to the gills of the fish and are carried elsewhere, so that helps them to spread or propagate. Ohio fishes, which we're most familiar with, there's the ones you think of, like bass and bluegill, some of the sport fish. But there's 170 species of fish that reside in Ohio. So you get a huge diversity, everything from gar to paddlefish, some really interesting things that we don't normally see. So they're also used by EPA and other agencies to gauge water quality. It's a little harder to use the fish populations because you need specialized equipment to be able to sample all of them. There are pretty strict regulations on who's able to do that, so who is set up and who has licenses to do that. Also, you have citizen science groups that look at macroinvertebrates, they're really easy to sample. So all the scenic rivers in Ohio are part of the stream quality monitoring program through ODNR. They use those macroinvertebrates, and that's something you can do too with very little equipment. And it's a fun activity for all ages. Last is recreation. It's very important for our local economy. So a lot of people are drawn in to Cowan Lake, Cesar Creek, even a lot of the streams. For fishing, that's an important one. Also boating, swimming, kayaking. I've seen a lot more kayaking, so that's been on the rise. There is sampling during the summer months. They'll sample bacteria in the local water, mostly at the beaches. And if that gets above a certain level, they'll put out advisories for those beaches. All right, I'm about out of time. YouTube only lets me upload videos that are of a certain time frame. So what I'll do, I'll continue this on another video. The next one will talk about source water protection, some of the local water quality, and some other topics. So I hope you join me for that. All right, thanks for listening.